Welcome back. This is Choice Words, the podcast where we get real about the future of public education. I'm your host, Jay Artis-Wright, and this is season 2 of Choice Words. We are turning up the volume on our stories that often go unheard. Last season, we introduced ourselves as a podcast that was focused on bringing stories from an education perspective that we rarely hear about, and that is the choices and decisions and uh, trade-offs that Black and Brown people, Black and Brown parents and educators have to make in this education space. And so we're going to continue with that through line. This season, we're spotlighting schools led by people of color, visionaries who are not only reimagining what education can look like, but reshaping what we value in school altogether. You'll hear from leaders who are building joy, culturally rooted curriculum, and academically rich schools. Uh, we're taking a nonpartisan lens to this work. It is unfair for most of us to think that we live in a society where we are a monolith as people. And so we want to make sure we bring stories from all spectrums of both the political uh, thinking and also just the educational space. So this will be about your choice for micro schools, for home schools, for charter schools, for traditional schools, everything across the gamut, because that's what freedom to choose is about. Today, I am super excited. I think this is a great kickoff for this season to have Dr. Tracey Samone Dumas Clark, one of our first guests for season 2. Dr. Tracey Samone is an educator. She's an education consultant, and she's a founder of Dumas Clark Curriculum Consulting. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
You say it a lot nicer than I do. I'm a little country, so we just say Dumas.
Dumas. Okay. I'm pronouncing every word. Dumas. Dumas. I like that better. Let's get country with it. That's awesome. Um, I think it's important that, and I said this to Dr. Tracey Samone right before we started. A lot of times, as professionals, we take out pieces of ourselves to fit into a box of what people think that they want to see or hear from us. And I want to dismantle that because you are an educator, you are a researcher, you are a mother, you are a wife, you hold all these different titles, and you are killing it, by the way. And that's why I'm so excited to have you join us. I think I would do a disservice in naming all the things about you, but one of the things that I loved that was mentioned is that you're known widely as the queen of clarity and care. That's awesome. So, Tracey, Dr. Tracey Simone, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then I would love to just go right into asking you some questions about all those pieces of your identity.
Yeah, so I am a mother. I have two sons, 13-year-old and 15-year-old. I will say I am not a wife. I'm actually an ex-wife. I've been divorced for about 13 years. So it's just been me and my boys. I am a single and solo parent. Um, we actually live out in the woods on about 8 acres of land. So I just recently purchased a lot of woodland. So I am a lover of the environment and a lover of trees. I'm a tree hugger, and a forest steward. I'm learning a lot about how to take care and tend to trees. And I am a consultant. So I work with I do a lot of educational work, but I also do a lot of work just in social justice and nonprofit organizations, supporting them with leadership development, strategy, facilitation. I care a great deal about the world I leave behind for my children and my children's children's children and everybody else's children. So I tend to have my hands in a little bit of everything. If it's supporting the org with climate change, if it's supporting the org with ending child poverty, or supporting organizations with increasing teacher representation. So you can kind of find me working in a little bit of all the things. And I'm a martial artist. I do jujitsu, so I got a little fight in me. Actually, Tracy means brave warrior, and Simone means who hears from God. So when you say them together, it's like a prayer. Brave
Let's
warrior,
say those together. Yes, say it all together.
yeah,
Brave warrior.
who hears from God.
That just gave me
And
goosebumps.
who God hears. So I'm like, don't have me out here by myself just calling me Tracy, because then it's just me. And I need like spiritual assistance in living this world, in this madness of this world. So like say the full thing so that I get the full blessing. Um, Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's a little, I'm an unschooler. I'm a lifelong educator, but lifelong educator turned unschooler, which is a very interesting journey I never thought I would be on. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
That's fantastic, and I wanna dive into so what I heard was, "I'm off the grid, but I also kick your butt if you try to come for me."
Just
But,
my
I'm just gonna say, I am definitely there is one stereotype about me that is true. I love the outdoors, but I am very nervous about, open spaces where there's not a lot of people around because I think about all those horror stories that my cousins used to make me watch and traumatize me. So I just really had this image of like you being off the grid with your boys, but at the same time being like mama bear and like kicking somebody's butt for trying to mess with you, which is probably very accurate. And then having, the power of God and his angels behind you, like what? So
well,
you. I'm
I'm
seeing
kind
you.
of like you. I'm not brave enough to be completely off the grid. So interestingly enough, when I decided that I wanted to live in the woods, I said I wanted a piece of the woods in a neighborhood. And so I literally live on the street with like 13 other homes. It looks very neighborhoodish, but I'm tucked way back in the woods, so nobody knows I'm here. Nobody's coming down my driveway because it's the creepy driveway that's like, I don't know what's back there. I'm gonna be like the little old lady that lives in the woods that there's like a bunch of folklore around.
Mhm. That's awesome. So was that a recent development, or have you raised your children in that environment since they were babies?
No, we've been here we're probably going on about 2 years now.
Okay. So what sparked the move?
So I just reconnected with a lot of parts of myself as a result of being in a leadership fellowship called Platform Impact that's specifically for leaders of color. And we would do retreats, and specifically, I remember one retreat we would go to the San Bernardino Mountains, and one of the exercises they had us walk outside and do something, and we came back in, and I shared an insight with the facilitator, and she was like, "If being out in nature gives you that much insight, you should live in nature all the time." And it was almost like she gave me permission to be like, that's a possibility. And I started looking and I talked to the boys about it. We looked at multiple properties. We found this one after not a very long search at all, and it just felt like home. Like I literally stepped on it and felt like the trees were like, "Welcome, you made it, you found
Oh,
it." And so, yeah,
beautiful. Did you go give them a hug and say thank you?
I do them all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. I know I feel you on that. I feel like there is this energy and a connection that I have to Earth. I'm also an Earth sign. I don't really believe in all that stuff, but my people that do believe in that have said, "Oh, you're definitely an Earth sign. You're very grounded." But there is something like I collect rocks. I know it sounds crazy, but like if you do too, yeah, it's something, right? It's something to it. Like if I go somewhere and I travel, I have to bring a rock back with me from wherever I'm at. Well, good to know. See, we have so much in common. I love this. Well, Tracy Simone, if it's okay, I'd love to just call you Tracy Simone because I feel like
Yes,
we're kindred spirit.
yes.
Okay. Well, you said a term that is new. I've never heard it before. You said you're an unschooler. What is an unschooler?
An unschooler is a person who has decided to to deconstruct and detach from schoolish ways. So unschoolers embrace the idea that like schooling is programming, is social programming. And honestly, in my dissertation, like there's a lot of conversation around how school is like a social reproduction factory. So what you want to see in society, you create schools that you put students in to become that. I mean, if we go all the way back to the original development of schools, they were designed around this factory production model, which is why you have classrooms, you have bells ringing, because you were preparing students to go out and work in the industry before during the Industrial Revolution. And so there are a lot of things that we take on as students in schools that we don't realize are programming. Things like somebody tells you when to go to the bathroom. So you lose your ability to know how to listen to yourself and your body. Somebody tells you what time to eat. So if lunch is at 11, it don't matter whether you're hungry at 2, you got to eat at 11 because we have to mass manage. Kids walk in lines and halls. And there are a lot of ways in which schools are structured that program us, that limit us from actually accessing our innate abilities, our intuition, our desires, our thoughts. It's kind of like group thinking. And so
Mhm.
unschoolers believe that we have to unlearn all those ways to become our full selves. Like we have to tap back into listening to our bodies, listening to what we need, and moving through the world in a way that is self-governed, not necessarily directed by something an external force is putting upon you.
That's awesome. And your dissertation is called We the Parents in Order to Form a More Perfect School. Is that correct?
Mhm. That is
Um,
correct.
and it examined the parental dissatisfaction through which you named critical realist mixed methods. Child, let me tell you. Let me tell you, you have to unpack all this. It's fascinating because those two things, I'm sitting here like, I gotta read more because I'm learning all this stuff, so I gotta know more about unschoolers. But let me say this again: critical realist mixed method lens. Tell us
Hmm.
about.
Listen, I'm one of these people that sometimes be doing the most. So when I wrote this dissertation multiple years ago, I was in my doing the most moment of life. Um, so critical realism is just like a theory of looking at the world. So when you go into research, you have to have like a lens that you're looking through. And critical realists are like they take multiple perspectives. Like they realize there is a perspective that you have that you see, but there's also the perspective of somebody experiencing the thing that may be different from yours. But then there's also a God's eye view. Like there's the thing that really happened. So critical realists, they spend time trying to not just look through their lens, they try to look through all those multiple lenses, and then they try to get high enough up to look across the data and to get the God's eye view of what's really happening. And they use that to interpret like the themes that are coming up in the data.
So your work sits in the intersection of healing and rigor. Why is that a combination necessary right now, specifically in education?
So I think in education a lot. When I was a teacher in the classroom, it's a pendulum, things swing through and you have to grab onto the next thing. And at one point it was rigor and relevance. It's like it needs to be rigorous, it needs to be intense, and it needs to be relevant, and it needs to align to what kids need to learn. Um, and I think that rigor matters in that there's something to be learned in the press, in the challenge, in the difficulty of something, in the struggle. But at the same time, there's got to be healing and there's got to be care that is there too. And a lot of times in school systems, it's so much rigor that is being put on children because it's so much rigor that's being put on teachers. It's like all this press and this pressure, and there's very little concern for like the whole human. You can always go back to like these multiple perspectives. There's nobody coming up high enough to be like, maybe this teacher's having a bad day today. Maybe she had an argument with her husband before she walked out the door and got here today, and then that kid just triggered something in her, and that's why they're having this power struggle, and that's why they're sitting in front of your office. And maybe this is not the space for rigor and press and push, but the space for expansion and breathing and healing and repair for rupture. And I think those things have to live together, because if it's all about healing and roses and unicorns and flowers, people don't grow. Like a diamond comes from pressure, but then if it's all about pressure and press, then people are oppressed, and they're they're stunted and they're not able to grow. But the two things together, it's like sun and water. It allows space and expansion.
And that's that critical realist right there, right? Because as you're talking about it, the first thing that comes to mind for me, because I've come from programs. I'm still in the matrix. I'm trying to get out. Help me, Tracey Samone. Help me get out. I'm trying. I got one foot in and one foot out. But as I'm listening and as I'm learning from you, uh, the first thing that came to mind is, okay, so we went through COVID, and we are all survivors, right? So people don't even understand that we had a global pandemic where we lost a lot of people, and it was trauma overall. We had essential workers who didn't even get a chance to rest because they were essential. A lot of those were people, nurses, doctors, in some cases teachers, when we got a chance to kind of grasp a hold of how we had to manage this. And so that post-traumatic, the PTSD that we have in the programming that we have, it's just like, oh, well, now we need social emotional learning, right? But that social emotional learning is still based on a structure that is causing the grief and the stress and that tension that you talked about. And so I find it funny because you're saying a lot of things that really need to dismantle and be more innovative about just the entire approach. I mean, like you said, like why does a teacher doesn't have a chance to even breathe and center herself, because when that bell rings, she got to be on, and when that curriculum says something, she's got to teach it. And so all those other parts of herself have to be put aside, and they can't be ignored, because then that causes a pressure, you have a pressure release that comes from somewhere. And that's why these teachers be trying to beat these kids, right? I mean, I feel you, and it's sad. I flip back and forth to both sides, is because the mother in me will be like, well, my kid does all the things well, and these teachers just need to do better. But then someone who's also had a chance to educate other people's kids and love on other people's kids. Another point we're going to come back to. I realize that there in the structure of teaching, there is not enough value placed in that critical realist connection and understanding the need to have a full self brought into that work. And it is, and I believe it is uh, one of the things that's leading to a lot of the burnout that we're seeing. So let's dive a little bit more into this curriculum that you have. You have the Dumas Clark curriculum. Can you talk to us about what that is?
Well, Dumas Clark Curriculum Consulting is just the name of my business. However, I do have a framework that I've developed called the Anchorway Framework, and it focuses on like leadership development. It is a metaphor. When I go into organizations or when I talk to leaders, I say like it's very much like you are on a boat and you're sailing, and this boat has to be made out of something. And so in order for a boat to get to where it needs to go, an organization or a leader, it needs to have clarity, it needs to have connection, and it needs to be cohesive, meaning like you need to be really clear about where you're going, you need to be connected to the vision, the mission, the people, and you need to be cohesive. You function effectively together. But on this boat, you're carrying something. You're carrying a compass, which is going to tell you what direction you're going in. You're carrying cargo, which are your programs, your processes, your systems, or you're carrying your crew, and you're carrying your crew, which are the people helping row the boat. And then you got to think about what makes the boat move. Well, one thing that makes the boat move is the current. It's these external forces that are pressing up against you as you try to do this work. Teachers have external forces pressing up against them all the time. So do parents. So do just humans in general that live on this planet, on this earth, especially right now. But then you have these two paddles that row the boat. And I believe that in order for it to go in the direction it needs to go, it would be courage as one paddle and care as the other paddle. Like you have to be brave, you have to take risks, but care is always going to be at the center of what I do. You have to actually care about the people on the boat, the programs on the boat, the structure of the boat, the current. And so I use this model to support leaders and organizations in solving like all of their yucky, sticky problems. I say that I help people get unstuck and get things done. And this is the model that I use to help that happen.
That's awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about you as a parent, because I know one of the things that came out in your dissertation is this the common drivers of parental dissatisfaction in education. Um, what was the moment for you as a parent, because you were also a teacher and an educator, where you realized you had to do something different for your kids, but other kids as well? Mhm.
So the interesting thing is it didn't come when I was a parent. It came when I was a teacher because I was stewarding other people's children. And I knew that one day I was going to be a parent, and I knew that what was going on in classrooms was not, I did not want that for my children. In my little classroom, I felt like I created a safe haven, but that at one point I outgrew just teaching kids in my classroom, and I went out to teach teachers. And then I would go into other classrooms and be like, this is why they pressing on us, because what's going on in this classroom is not okay. And so now we're all taking the heat for what is happening in these few classrooms. And I got the thought, like, I really want something more for my children. And I actually really want something more for teachers, because teachers are smart and they actually don't need a whole bunch of leaders to make decisions. They make a million decisions a day. Nobody understands how many decisions you have to make when you are mass managing multiple little humans in your room that all have their own nervous systems and their own things they're bringing into the space. And so I got this idea that I wanted to create a school. and I wanted to be non-hierarchical. So I wanted the teachers to lead together. And it could be like part of the day I'm teaching, part of the day I'm doing administrative work, or part of the day I'm teaching, and the other part of the day, I'm managing the buses. And then I wanted it to be student powered as well, where students actually got to have some say in what they were learning. And so that spurred me off to like, okay, I want to start school, but I also wanted to go get a PhD. And I was like, I need to write a PhD that's going to help me open up this school. And I'm not happy as a teacher. I wonder why parents aren't happy. What are they noticing? And that's what led me down the path of like, I would love to have conversations with the angriest, most pissed off parents in this country and find out why they're angry so that I can fill my school in a way that meets their needs so that they're not angry when they send their kids to my building.
I got you. And so what did you find? Why are they angry?
So the very things I saw as a teacher, they believed that they felt like people did not honor the wholeness of their children, that it was just all about academics, and that they were missing the ball when it came to all the other things that a child brings to school. And then the other thing was that they didn't feel like schools were wanting to be in a mutual partnership with them. They didn't feel like schools wanted to listen to them or embrace them as having wisdom about how to support their children. In the end, my theory started circling around what it's like to be in a dysfunctional marriage. And it ended up being like parents and schools are in this dysfunctional marriage. And then teachers and schools are in this dysfunctional marriage. And then teachers and students are in this dysfunctional marriage. It's like everybody wants what's best, but they can't quite figure out how to make it happen. Because they're in their own silos and they're being pressed by something further up above them at each level.
Mhm. And what's interesting about that too is that most marriages stay dysfunction for the sake of the kids, right? So it's like that center around our students and our kids gets missed. So I mean, again, this is really profound what you're saying, and it has so many legs, and we could talk forever about it. And I'm just overwhelmed. I'm like, oh, I want to say this, I want to say that. I mean, this is great. I'm looking forward to really diving in a little bit more, and potentially bringing you back as well because. I always feel like when we have opportunities like this, especially to learn, this isn't regurgitated information. This is new information. Our listeners and our viewers are potentially going to be taking notes like, wait, what did she just say? And it's a great thing that's recorded because they can, rewind and get more. But it's also just great to bring people back, especially when we're talking about innovative thinkers. You are truly an innovative thinker. So how do you see schools misinterpreting that dissatisfaction from that angry kid, from that angry parent, and especially among like Black and brown working class families? Can you talk to us about that experience?
I don't know if schools actually interpret it as parents being dissatisfied. This comes from like my lived experience as like a district level leader, a school leader, administrator. Like honestly, the way this whole system is set up, and I always say people say the system is broken. No, it's doing exactly what it's designed to do. And because here we go with these multiple perspectives, everybody at every level has a different type of pressure upon them. And so they're just trying to not succumb to the pressure, to the press, to the rigor. And because of that, they can't see what other people may be going through. So oftentimes in the school, the educators in the building are not thinking about why parents are dissatisfied. They're thinking about why are these parents not coming to this building helping me with these kids? They don't care about these kids. They don't this, they don't that. And they're not thinking like she's a single mother working two jobs and she like school is not just a place she sends her kid to get educated, but you are her co-parent. Like she sends her baby there because it's a safe place where their baby's gonna get fed and get cared for, but she doesn't know that you on the other end are having people come in and evaluate you every 5 seconds and telling you to change this, fix this. You don't know this, you don't know that. When you went to school for who knows how much and you're sitting on a whole bunch of student loan debt and you know what you're doing, but you have somebody pressing on you all day trying to tell you that you don't. And so you're not regulated. And then this kid comes in because they're not regulated because their mama worked late last night and they didn't. And so the kid popping off, the teacher popping off, the principal popping off on the teacher because the principal has a district office like, you need to get these scores up. This data needs to be better than this because if we don't get this data, we don't get this funding. So then the principal's stressed out. The district is stressed out. Like it is a system where everything I'm remembering this now. It's like a triangle And at the top of the triangle is like the governing structure, like federal, and then up under it is state, and then up under that is district, and then up under that is school, and then up under that is parents, and then up under that is students. Look at all that pressure, and where is it going? It's trickling all the way down to the students. And so in my mind, a model mean what an effective model does is it inverts the triangle. And so at the top of the triangle, the fat part is the students. And everything revolves around the students, and the students are the press down to the federal government that these are the things we need to be successful. These are the things that we need to grow and to thrive. And right now we have a system where if you're younger, you have less power. If you like, it's all about power and proximity to power. And so we talk about unschoolers think about ageism and how we parent our kids, and we're ageist because we think they don't know things just because they're little. Well, they're born with their own wisdom system. And if a 5-year-old can tell you a whole lot if you'll just sit down and listen. A 5-year-old might rock your world and change your life if you sit down and listen. They're paying attention to stuff that you've long forgotten because it's been programmed out of you because you've been told when to go to the bathroom and when to eat for the last 47 years. Well, this baby's got fresh eyes that just got here. So, the less power you have, the less ability you have to impact the world and to impact change around you. And we have built a system where all the power is at the top and is pressing down on the people that are the least of these.
What I heard you say is very powerful. Ageism is real. I think that a lot of our students specifically shut down a lot of their brilliance because they feel like you're not going to listen to me. I'm not going to be heard because I'm not an adult. That's really powerful. 2 years ago, I did this pilot project with some friends, that Chris Stewart, Dr. Charles Cole, and Dr. Shree Felmecki. It's called the New Niagara Project, and we went to 5 metropolitan cities that have really underperforming schools across the country. And we talked to parents, we talked to educators, we talked to community leaders, we talked to students. One of the things that was universal and every time we stopped was that students said that people don't want to hear what we have to say. They just want to tell us what to do. It broke my heart, but it's also real. And we are at our intersection now too, where technology is moving at such a fast pace. These kids know a lot more than we give them credit for, and we're doing ourselves a disservice by not tapping into that to help us. So I heard that really clear. Another thing that I heard that I think is worth making sure that people highlight is that teachers are co-parents. That's something that you don't hear often, right? It's like, you and both of those are a symbiotic relationship. We have parents who just think I'm gonna send my child there and you're going to teach them and you're going to do this, but I also expect you to keep them safe, and you can't keep them safe if you don't love them. You know what I mean? And so how we have to create that is really built into all the things that you're naming. And at the same time, you said something also very profound that we hear a lot. It's in a system that was never designed to do any of that, right? It was, our system, the public education system as we know it in this country was a mill system, crank them through. Again, let that whistle blow for lunch, bring them back, make them stand in a line, all of that. And so that is all mechanically driven and not emotionally driven. And I'm just hearing all this, and I hope I was able to articulate all that very well for you, because you really just you got that doctorate. You did that. You did that. You deserve all pieces of that, because I heard everything. And I hope that you are also spending time at universities if you're not, because I would love to be a student in your class, to hear this. I would love to be a young educator and figure out, how do I bring these pieces of what you're saying into my work? Because when you become, or when you go into the teaching profession, you take the praxis, you take whatever exam, the assessment you have to take, and it's all about numbers, it's all about data, it's all about structure and alignment. They don't give us time to talk about emotions and feelings.
You were taking me on a journey through my whole entire life because I've been there, done that. I was a college professor. I was, and it's the same pressure. I thought, you know, I'm going to go out and I'm going to help teachers be better teachers. And it's the same pressure in that system. It's a teacher meal, just like we're a factory meal. Kids, it's a teacher meal. It's fill this department. Teachers, it's easy to get them in, get them out. We have money attached to it. It's actually not about spending time helping them think through how to be the best teachers. It's literally like get them in, get them out, get them in, get them out. And it's a whole nother world when you deal with bringing a bunch of students from all over the country into a space to engage together. You have to teach people how to be in a container together where they're not causing harm. And then you put a black woman in front of them when many of them have never had a black teacher a day in their life, and so there's a power dynamic there. Like, you can't tell me what to do. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. So yes, I have been at that level. It was a whole journey in and of itself.
Well, I didn't mean to bring up, I didn't want to trigger you there. I was just saying that hopefully we can get you back. Let me give you an air hug right now. Let me give you a hug because I think that calling, that warrior and God spirit that you have was calling you in the right direction. And maybe it's just redirecting it into, an outside environment. They've got schooling outside. So maybe that's where we need to put you. I don't know. I'm gonna help you get there though. I'm gonna help you get there because that's what I do. Um, Listening to you made me think about something else as well. So you did mention about the teaching profession. Um, we have been blessed to have a lot of Black women and Black men on this show that came from being educators. They started their career path as teachers, and then they decided to do something else. Thankfully, those gifts and talents were still able to be beneficial to the education sector in different ways. In the past 30 years, we've seen this new structure. We have a charter school structure. In the past, I'd say maybe 5 to 10 years, we've seen this emergence of this micro school model and homeschools now. And I think even more so, probably since the pandemic, there are new types of school models that come about. And I believe they've come about from what you just named, because those systems that we historically are used to just don't work. My question to you is, when they don't work for Black teachers, but we've got our Black students in the classrooms that need to have that connection. When they don't work for Latino students, but they need to see a reflection of someone from their community who understands them. Like, where do we do? Because we can't just say, all right, system doesn't work, it's broken, divest from it, when so many of our folks don't have the privileges that you and I have to be able to divest. So if you had to tell a parent who has their children in a public education system or a historically traditional system, but that is also listening to this and saying, man, that sounds good. Like, what types of more pearls or tips would you give them to maybe help ease that structure? Or is it just, man, get out, you know?
Public school advocate. Like, I was a public school teacher for a long time, so I don't think there's a get out. I think there's a pay attention. It's a tune in, tap in, turn on. Like, make even you have to make your presence known. You have to advocate. I literally, my oldest son just went back into public school because that's his choice as a self-directed learner, and you have to actively, as a parent, make your presence known, in any way you can. And I know sometimes, like, time is a resource you may not have because you may be working, but then you can write a letter. Like, you have to tune in so that you can be your child's advocate throughout their whole entire experience. And not only do you have to tune into what's happening in the school, you have to tune into your child and create a relationship with your child in a way that they're able to talk to you about what's going on, talk to you about what they need, and also teach your child how to advocate for themselves. Teach your child how to be able to have a conversation if a teacher crosses a boundary or does something or says something in a way that's respectful. So if you build this relationship with your child where you're not power over them, you're not putting them at the bottom of the triangle, but you're creating space for them to be free and to express themselves with you, then you teach them how to have those hard conversations in a classroom with an adult. That allows them to liberate themselves even in the confinements of the school system. I'll say, like, my son, it has been a very interesting experience coming from, like, a micro school, a self-directed learning school. Since COVID, he has not been in traditional school. He's been in a self-directed learning center, agile learning center. And now he's gone back to public school, and he has found out that it's not the same. Like, it is very different from the agency. that. But I've also saw him even as a neurodivergent child that has anxiety, that is very introverted. I have seen him have conversations with teachers about ways in which they cross boundaries that surprise me. And it might tick the teacher off a little bit, but then at the same time, the teacher is able to realize, oh, you know what, maybe I did go about that the wrong way. Or maybe the teacher doesn't realize it. That's when you call me in. Like that's I'm able to tap in and have a conversation. But I've seen my child be able to be respectful to a teacher and say, when you called on me and I said this and you laughed at me in front of all the kids, that hurt my feelings and it made me really upset. And you got to equip your child with these types of tools because not only are they going to need them at school, they're going to need them out in the regular world on a day-to-day basis. They're going to need them with their boyfriends. They're going to need them with their best friends. They're going to need them with anybody that comes in contact with them. So just tune in, tap in, turn on to what's happening in that school and what's happening with your child so that you can help them navigate the madness of it all.
That's fantastic. I want to know specifically, what does a self-directed learning day look like for your son?
So at Self-Directed Learning Center, the one that he was at, a day looks like in the morning they start with the morning meeting. And the kids are in charge. So one child's leading the morning meeting. They have a schedule up, and the kids are saying, one kid's like, 5-year-old is like, today I want to learn about snakes. I'm going to have an offering at 10 o'clock today. Who wants to come? The kid, and they'll say things like, this is a hard commitment or this is a light commitment. Like, don't raise your hand if you're not going to show up. Or you can decide along the way, and kids will be like, I want to go to that. Another kid might be like, today I'm going to bake donuts in the kitchen. Who wants to come? I'm going to be doing it at 3 o'clock. And then another kid might be like, I'm going to be on the 3D printer at 5 o'clock. Who wants, not five, that's too late, but at such and such, who wants to come? So the kids build a schedule for the day. And they embrace the idea that learning is always happening. It's not something that happens in a book. Learning happens out in life, and then they take it and put it into books. So the idea is live life, do the things, and then you have a very strong facilitator by your side to help you notice the book learning. So when you're in the kitchen and you're measuring the flour for the donuts, the teacher's talking to you about fractions. When you're mixing the things together, the teacher's talking to you about the chemical reaction that's taking place. You're having those types of conversations. Then also there's a part in the day where everybody comes together and they play group games. So you're learning how those soft skills and how to be in conflict and how to play and cooperate with one another. The end of the day closes with a checkpoint where they talk about how things went. They had a block of time that they call comulture, which was a combination of community and culture. And they would talk about things that are going on in the world outside of them. They had a regular meeting where they talked about issues and how to solve them. Like somebody would be like, somebody keeps leaving the toilet up in the bathroom and it's really making me angry. And so then the kids will come up with, okay, well, what are solutions? And they will come up with a practice. Okay, for the next week, we're going to practice this strategy right here. We're going to put a note above the toilet to tell people to let the seat down. Then the next week they come back and they're like, did that work? Kids like, yes, it worked. Okay, we're going to practice it again. Or no, it didn't. Well, let's revise it. And every week they would practice for 3 weeks and then they would decide, should this become a community habit? Yes, the note, it works. Make it a habit. So because it was a small micro school with only about 35 kids, they're able to be literally in community together. The adults and the kids, and it's not the adults over the kids. It is the kids are telling you what they want to know, and the adults are tuned in, turned in, tapped on, and able to help navigate and bring out learning as the kids are working together to do whatever it is that they desire to do that day.
So the structure is the kids take over, and the teachers are kind of observers on the outside to kind of help them navigate, or is
Well,
that what
they're
you're
very much on the inside too. So
saying?
everybody's on the inside. So the teacher might be making donuts right alongside the kid. The teacher's out there playing kickball right alongside the kids. Like the teachers are doing all the things. A teacher might be like, you know what, today for my offering, I'm going to go sit in color. Who wants to join me? And so when you walk in the building, you don't see all my 6-year-olds together, all my 5-year-olds together. You might go into one room and it's a 5-year-old learning how to play a guitar from a 13-year-old. You might go into another room and it's like a bunch of 10-year-olds playing a video game together. And in this other room, it could be a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 3-year-old doing something together. So they're also learning how to break down this idea of ageism and embody that everybody has their own wisdom. Everybody has gifts and talents, and we can all learn and grow from each other together in a space.
That is beautiful. That is so beautiful. Ah, this just warmed my heart, and I see it in my mind, and I want to see it in action. I got to get out on the road and figure out where these types of environments are. Can you?
Agile learning centers. Agile learning centers.
Okay, agile learning centers. All right,
Mhm,
that it reminds me a little bit of the Waldorf model. I don't know if you're familiar
mhm.
with that.
Very similar, same vein of learning. Yes.
I wish I had more time to talk, but unfortunately, we are coming to the close of this episode. Um, it's been a pleasure, Dr. Dumas Clark, having you on. Tracey Samone, and your wonderful name. We're about to close out this episode. If you could give us one last gem, one last choice words, Dr. Tracey Samone, what would you want our listeners to hear from you and learn from you?
You are your own best teacher.
You are your own best teacher. Love that. Well, listen again, Dr. Tracey Samone Dumas Clark. I'm gonna say your whole name awful because it means so much stuff. This has been a joy. I think I need to have your sons come on and just like, how is it being with having this wonderful woman as a mom? What's that like?
I don't know about that.
Like, we have to kind of edit that before I filter that out because they, being critical thinkers, they may say all types of stuff, right?
They don't say all types of stuff. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I know. Mine too. We got this video of my daughter, my youngest daughter, when she was about 2 or 3. She looked at me and said, I told her to turn the music down, and she looked at me and said, "Don't worry about my music. Worry about yourself." And I was like, what? But the funny thing about it is that it's something that resonates with in our family. Like when people are not minding their own business, we be like, "Worry about yourself. Worry about yourself." So again, we can learn a lot from our kids, and it's good to have that love and that laughter and that joy built into it. And again, don't discriminate against them because of their age. They have value, they have power from a very young age. So I'm so glad to see that you are raising powerful, agentic, critical thinking young Black men, right? Which is also a whole episode within itself. But I thank you so much for joining us. For those of you listening, if you want to learn more, again, go to chooseschools.org. Dr. Tracey Samone Dumas Clark is a just wealth of knowledge. She's been a professor. She's a consultant at large. She is all the things. She is a mother of nature, all of the things. And it has just truly been a blessing to have you on our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.